Hello and welcome to another exciting Blender tutorial. Today we're going to be making these lava monster tentacles coming out of the ground. It's going to be really fun. Let's get started. So in today's tutorial, we're going to be creating these tentacles. I'll be showing you how to do the procedural scale material, and we're also going to be making the rocks breaking up and creating the overall shot and angle. If you want to find out how to do the lava and the overall lighting for the shot to get to this final image, you're going to have to head over to Patreon to catch the uncut live stream that's about 2 hours long, go into all the detail. You can also find it if you join on YouTube at the All Access Pass level and higher. Thanks so much to everybody who supports this channel. Really appreciate you helping make tutorials like this happen. Let's get started. First thing we need to make is a material that's got like scales. I'm going to switch over to rendered view, and I'll look at this, just drop down. Go, and we will need to lighten the scene. I'm just going to go up here and turn off scene world. So just this little tab here. This will just give me a built-in HDRI. It'll just give me some lighting. That's all I need to worry about. I'm also going to come over to EV and turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, and screen space reflections. Great. Now let's come over to the material tab. I'm going to click new to create a new material. And I'm just going to work with an emission shader for now. So I'll just delete that, create an emission shader, and plug it into the surface. And now, what first thing we're going to do is we're going to use a lot of math nodes and stuff to do this. I don't want you to get lost. I'm going to try and explain this, but bear in mind, I've done all this beforehand and figured it out. So I'm not riffing, just kind of experimenting on the fly here to make this. It's taken me a lot of trial and error to get this right. So I'm going to try and explain what's going on and walk you through it. First thing we're going to do is create a gradient texture. Okay, and let's plug this into the emission. Gradient texture gives us a gradient. So from left to right, you see black to white there. We're going to switch this to spherical. This will give us a circular shape. And I'm going to use the texture coordinate. We're going to use the UV as the vector. So the reason why we're doing that is because I want to have some splines in my scene that are kind of curvy, like tentacles. And splines come with UVs already kind of mapped out that follow the surface of the spline itself. So if we make something that works using a UV, it's going to naturally follow the flow of the surface of our object. So UV is going to be really good for that. Now, what we want to do is we're going to make some scales out of this, and we're going to make like 2 rows, offset them, and then we're going to repeat it a bunch of times. So let's go ahead and create a color ramp, and I'm going to drop it here. All right, I'm going to grab a mapping node, and I'll plug this in here, but I'm not going to do anything to it just yet. And then I'm going to grab a vector math node. And what we're going to do is switch this to fraction. Okay, so we're going to use the fraction function, and I'll show you what it does. So I'll just drop it in here after the mapping node, before the gradient texture. So we're doing all this math to the vector, which is the vector is the set of numbers that determines how this texture, this material is placed on our object. So this fraction node, what it's going to do is, watch, if I scale down, so just shift and grab, you can see what it's done is it's multiplying this, it's just increasing this image infinitely. As we scale down our UV, it's going to just keep repeating. If I mute this by hitting M, turn it off, you can see this is the effect, without it. It's just this is going to get smaller and smaller, this gradient texture. So the UV coordinates are getting shrunk down. But we add this fraction in, not only are they getting shrunk down, but they're getting repeated over and over and over again. So this is how we can create a repeating scale effect. Now, an interesting thing about the fraction node is, see, if I move the UV around here, it's going to move this whole set, right? Everything is going to shift around. But if I create another mapping node and I put it after the fraction node, so after the fraction math has been done, now we're going to do a little bit more math to it. If I move the location, you can see it doesn't affect the fraction anymore. Now it's actually just moving the gradient around. So this is how we can line this up. So I'm going to go -0.5. So now I've got this gradient kind of right in the center. And I can use these guys here to kind of shape the scale and determine where I want, the peak of it to be and stuff. So there we go. So now we've got this sort of like arced setup. So now let's take this over here. We'll set our scale to 2 at our beginning. So we just end up with 4 quadrants from the fraction node. We'll keep all this the same. I'll just drag this out so we can see things nice and clear. And what I want to do is I want to get the top row to be offset, right? So we end up with this, not with the same pattern over time, but like the curve of the next one, like I'm going to offset these guys over to here, basically. I'll just bring this up like this. I might change the scale a little bit. Okay, so I want to take this top row and move it over a little bit, right? So it needs to happen after the fraction, right? Before the fraction, because I want to move the whole row, right? I want fraction to continue to work, but I don't want to move this bottom row. So think about it this way. Let's create a color ramp. Okay, and I'm even going to rotate all this 90 degrees so it's even clearer to think about. And we will just keep this at 2, keep it really simple visually. So look at this color ramp, see how it lines up here with the direction things are going. I'm going to set this to constant, and I'm going to kind of drag this into the middle. So basically it's like I want to take everything that's on this side, this half of the object, and I'm going to move it 0.5 in one direction. So I want to move it, I think on the X, move it, 0.5. So I want it to be like this. Whereas everything over here, this side of the gradient, I don't want to move at all. So let's do that in this color ramp first. So I'm going to take my vibrancy, I'm going to set this to 0.5. So this is the value I want to have all these to have on the X. And the value I want these to have is 0. I just want it to stay the same. Now if I can grab a combine XYZ node, and I could say, all right, take these numbers, take this 0.5 for this half and the 0 for this half, and use it for the X. Okay? I don't want to do anything to the Y and the Z. But I need to translate this idea into what we were just talking about, the sort of like, two halves of this object. We can do that with the gradient texture, right? Because if you remember, let's just come back over to here, plug this gradient texture in. So the gradient texture is creating this black to white pattern in this direction that we were just trying to do. So if you look at this now, so I'll just unplug this for a second, bring this over here. So you can see we've created this sort of half and half. In fact, it's not perfect. Let's bring it, we can actually set this position to 0.5. That'll put it right in the middle. So this half is, negative 0.5 and this half is 0. So now we can plug this into the UV just so we know that it's always going to be consistent. As we change the UV, it's going to change this whole material together because it's all starting with the same input vector. And I can take this and plug it into the X. And now what I can do is I can plug this into here. So what's going to happen is it's going to offset this half of the texture, but not this half. It's pretty cool. But now there's a problem. If I go back to scaling, you can see it's going to kind of break things a little bit. So if I take my scale now and I start to scale it, you can see it's not quite working. But we need to repeat this pattern as well as this pattern. So both of them need to repeat. So let's take this fraction and we'll bring it right over here. And remember, to get this to work, the fraction needs to happen before we get to the texture node. So we got to do it to the vector. So if I plug that in there, so now there's no visible change yet, but we know that this fraction node is causing it to repeat infinitely into the distance. Now if I come over here and scale, it's still not going to work. We're scaling after we've done all this stuff. Remember, after you do the fraction, it keeps the fraction stable and it just moves things around within it. So we actually need to do our proper scale way back over here before we get to anything. So I'll grab one more mapping node and I'll just plug in the UV and then I'll plug the vector here and I'll make sure it matches by plugging this one into here. And now if I come over here and change my scale, I can scale this one. And you can see we get this alternating pattern and it stays consistent. Set this maybe to 10, get this nice alternating scales and drag this out a little bit to kind of make it nice and soft. Now we got this hard edge, we need to deal with that. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gradient that follows the same pattern and we're going to multiply it so that the bottom here, it goes to black. So it fades from white at the tip of the scale, fades to black until we reach this bit. And so they'll be the same color. You won't be able to see that transition anymore. So let's get another gradient texture node. I'll just grab one here and Shift D to duplicate. And I will bring this, I'll bring this vector in because I want it to scale with it. And then let's just bring this all the way over to our emission. Let's just have a look at that by itself. See, let's get a color ramp, drag in here. Let's go ahead and we'll combine these so we can compare them together. So I'm going to grab a mix RGB, take this one, pop it in there, take this one, pop it in there, turn the factor up to 1 and set it to multiply. And then I can take this color and plug it into this color. All right, so not quite matching up yet. All right, so we need to take the gradient texture, and we want it to match. If I come up here, like after this point, or even we could go all the way right to here. Have a look at what this actually looks like. You can see that it's alternating, which we don't want it to do. We don't need this checkered pattern. And it's also, the gradient's going in the wrong direction, right? And that's because we've rotated our scales here 90 degrees. So we need to have a version of this basically that isn't rotating it and isn't being offset. So we need to skip these and we need to not rotate. So let's take this right here and this right here, and we'll just take this output, plug it straight in, get rid of that 90-degree rotation, and we'll plug this into a fraction so it repeats. And we could probably even skip this one. I don't think that one's going to be necessary. Let's plug this into here. And you can see now, if I mix them together, I'm going to have this gradient. So now I can adjust it. And because it's set to multiply, wherever we've got the black 0 value, it's going to just get rid of whatever's there. So now we can adjust this. Could even add another pip back here, set this to black. This would give us a cool extra kind of bit. I might set this to ease just to smooth it all out that much more. There we go. We got a nice kind of scale wavy pattern. Very cool. All right, now we're going to use this to drive a bump. So we've got a bumpy texture that looks like scales. So I'm going to take my plane and I'll just hide it for now. I'm going to go Shift-A, Curve, Bezier. Come down to the Bezier tab, go to Geometry, and turn up Depth. And now, let's see, I'll rotate on the Y 90 degrees, grab this up. This is going to be one of our tentacles. And I'll just come here and I will grab our scale material. Nice. All right, maybe we'll go the other way. So rotate X 180. So the scales are going up. I don't know, I feel like that looks better. There we go. So I can hit E to extrude, just grab this up, and then I can hit Alt S to scale and just scale this down a little bit, maybe E one more time, Alt S and scale it all the way down. And just adjust these a little bit. So you can see how it's following the curve. And that's because we use the UV. And this UV is naturally being generated and it's flowing with the surface. All right, so now let's adjust this so that it feels good on this surface. So I'm going to go all the way back to my scale way back here. And I'll just scale it. I might scale down on the X just to tighten up the pattern like that. Looks pretty good. And I might actually just make it all a bit bigger. Something like this. You can do yours however you like. And I'll come back over here to the very beginning and we're going to grab a principled BSDF shader and a bump node. And I'm going to take this color, import it into the height, and I'll take this, plug it into the normal, and I'll take this and plug it into the surface. And I can get rid of the emission. All right. Now, I'm going to take my distance down to 0.1, maybe lower my strength a bit as well. Nice. All right, let's go ahead and set up camera. Shift-A, camera. Jump into my camera by hitting number 0 on my keypad. Just increase my view a little bit. Click my camera, go to viewport display, turn up passport 2. And I'm going to go here to view, lock my camera to view. Just zoom out. I'm going to give myself a real nice wide lens, like a 14, something like that. So I can get this really dramatic scale. And I'm going to create a couple of these guys. I'm going to open this up, 3D viewport, so I can see a bit better. And I'll rotate this around, maybe scale it a bit. Shift-D to duplicate, rotate Z, come around. So I'll just keep duplicating these and moving them around until I've got something that I think looks really dramatic and powerful. I'm trying to get this sense that it's like kind of breaking through the surface here of something. Now let's get some lights going. I'm going to go ahead and turn my scene world back on. I'm gonna go Shift A, sun lamp, and I'll get a sun lamp kind of roughly positioned in here. Turn it way up, like 10. Give it maybe like a bit of an orangish red color. And then Shift D to duplicate, rotate by Z. We do it from this view. Bring it around. Give this one a bit of like a deeper red. That's pretty cool. Let's add some volume to our scene. So let's go over here to the shader editor, go to world, and I'm gonna turn my background to black, and I'm gonna add a volume scatter node. And I'll plug that into the volume, take my density down to like 0.1, and the anisotropy, I might raise it up a little bit. And let's take this first sun and let's get it out of the view. It's a bit too intense up there. I might turn up the volume to like 5 or something, so it's really, really glowy, and increase the saturation a touch more. All right, let's take our tentacles and let's come back over to our object shader. Let's turn up subsurface scattering. And let's take our roughness all the way down and our specular up. Let's adjust the strength of this bump node. Yeah, I might Shift A, create a point light right down here inside. Kind of bring it behind them a bit. Turn this way up. And I'm going to give this like a deep red. Turn it up to like 300 maybe. I don't know, something massive. Let's put a noise texture into the density. I'll grab a color ramp and a noise texture. I'll plug them into the factor, color into the density, and I'll take this white and I'm going to bring it down, and I'm going to turn the scale up. Oh no, keep the scale down. Actually, I'm going to put it like 1 or something. I'll bring the black value up. You can see it's going to kind of break up the noise. Turn up the roughness and the detail a little bit. All right, now we need to get some surface so this thing's like actually breaking out of something. So let's go to our 3D viewport. And I'm going to Shift A mesh cube, scale it down a bit, come over here. And I'm thinking what I want to do is I'll switch this to local and scale Z. I want to create like these plates almost. Go into edit mode, grab my edge, grab that in. Pretty cool. Looks like it's really breaking up. Now, I can just take these guys, shift select each of them, like so. Come over to modifiers, add a subdivision surface. I'm going to set it to simple, and I'll turn the subdivisions up to 5, and then I'm going to add a displacement modifier. Click new, jump to the texture tab down here, switch this to clouds, change the scale so it's a bit bigger. And then I also want to take all these guys and type F3 and apply scale. There we go. And now I want to go F3 copy modifiers. There it goes. So link transfer data, copy. So Control L is the hotkey, but that'll put it these modifiers on all these guys. Now what I can do is I can come over to my texture and I can adjust the size here to get different effects. Now I'm going to hold down Alt, and this allows me to adjust all of these guys together. So I might F3 shade smooth. We'll shade all of them smooth. All right, now let's put a material on all these guys. So I'll select all these cubes, come to my material tab, click new, and then click the little drop down and copy material to selected. Take my base color down. We're basically going to make just like a simple rock shader for these guys. Switch back to object shader. And we're going to grab some noise, not white. Noise texture, color ramp, factor into the factor, and color. We're going to make a bump node. So grab a bump and plug that into the height, plug the normal into the normal. Reset scale up like this. Maybe distortion up a bit because of this whole like lava planet idea. And keep it base color, turn up that specular, bring the roughness down, up maybe. I'm gonna use some depth of field, so I'm bringing these guys really close to the camera. Creating little gaps here, trying to create little like, you know, where you can see through these. So you know that these bits are like really breaking up. Most of this shot is about composition, you know, getting it to look good with just a nice clean composition. That has like a real, I'm thinking about like a triangular shape. So like that. So anything that helps add to that look is gonna be what I'm after. Yeah, I can really see what this is gonna look like. Turn depth of field on, turn down my f-stop, bring my focus distance onto the tentacles. Yeah, I think I want to make a few like bits that are kind of been blasted away. Doing this by hand so that I get like the look that I want and really can yeah, get these guys looking cool. There are some tricks we could do for like a still where we could have motion blur. Like we can animate just a few frames. Let's go back to our worm thing. It's looking very much like a worm. Might push its color, maybe. What happens if we change the subsurface color to something else? Let's just have a look. I mean, it feels like if it's going to live underground in like a lava planet, it's going to need to have some kind of red texture or red interior, like it glows hot inside. Maybe let's give it some kind of pattern on its skin. So let's go for a Voronoi texture and a color ramp. And we will drop this here, plug the distance into the factor, and I'll grab the color that we've already picked and then maybe keep it to black. It's down. Yeah, that's nice, kind of, you know, veined pattern. The other option, let's plug this into the subsurface and we give the skin like a black color. I'm going to play with the scale on the scales. Bring them down, see what that looks like. Go back to my world shader, play with the anisotropy of my lights. It's very cool. And we're going to have something escaping, right? That's the only way to do this. So let's, this is kind of cool. I mean, like, we can't say anything, but it does create some very dramatic effects. Scale back down to like 1. I like it. Except for that light. Grab that point light and bring it down off camera there. Crank it up to 1,000. $2,000. Let's go nuts. Duplicate it. Let's bring another one over here. I really like that we're getting this like hot point right down here at the base. It looks very cool. All right, it's coming together now. All right, let's make this thing escaping. I'm going to go to 3D viewport, Shift A, mesh cube, grab Z, scale it down. I'm going to put it right about here, rotate Y. Go into edit mode. Go to face mode. Inset. And let's add a material. Let's add 2 materials. Actually, first we'll do assign everything, the first material to everything. Then I'll grab this face, grab the second material, and just assign that. We'll set this to be an emission. Turn it right up. And let's get it rotated. And then let's hit E to extrude. Grab my controls, set myself to normal. And I'll grab this out and scale it down. I'll Control plus to select all of that and assign the glowing shader to all of it. There we go. Scale that right down. Grab all these guys. I'm going to scale Shift Z. I can just scale like that rocket bit. Let's go back to edit mode, grab this. Actually, go ahead and take this material, make this black, turn up metallic, and specular, and bring down the roughness. And let's scale this front down. Grab Z, like that. Let's grab this side and this side, hit I to inset, like that. E, scale X, scale Z, scale X, I meant. Oh, no, let's go local, scale X. Yeah, that's right. Grab Z, bring these guys back. Let's make it smaller. Grab this guy again and scale Shift Z just to thicken it up. And then maybe grab the end here. Can I get it? Yeah. Bring that right down. Let's maybe make this a bit of a blue. Gonna try and break up the shape a little bit. Just doing some random insets and yeah, it's kind of nice. That's the cool looking ship. A little bit of color into it so it reflects the environment a bit better. Scale it down to be a lot smaller, I think. Bring him closer to camera so that he's more visible into the, through the fog and stuff. And then scale him down to get him look I want to extend that trail a bit further. So I'm just going to grab vertexes like that and bring them down. I'm going to use that line, just kind of really land our composition. So it looks quite dramatic. I like that. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you really enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to check out the Patreon as well, where you can get this project file if you join this month or next month. And you can also get the full uncut live stream, which is about 2 hours long. Right? Get this, do everything to get to this final image. Lots of extra detail there. You can also find that if you join on YouTube at the All Access Pass level and higher. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a fantastic week. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Until then, see you later.